Okay, so we're not done with the certainty topic yet, but we are certainly done with all the stupid puns. That's certainly your opinion. That was the last one. I promise. I just think that joke is gold. I probably used it already in this podcast. Anyway, we're not done with the certainty topic, and it's not because I want to share more World According to James. After that podcast, I received a note from somebody who had listened to it, and they were sharing their reflections and thoughts on it, but also shared something that they had thought about before, both on the topic of certainty as well as some of the surrounding concepts that I was kind of wrestling with yesterday and really trying to get the bottom of, which was, how the heck do you navigate these crystallized concrete thoughts that are certain versus how do you pressure test your thoughts in an effective way and come out the other side with a deeper understanding, more thorough understanding, enriching understanding of the way you look at the world. And I really liked the way that they framed this. I thought it was just like so spot on and insightful. I'm kind of kicking myself that I didn't tune into, one of the main things that they shared here. And one of the other reasons I wanted to share it is one of the driving forces for this podcast when I first started was that I wanted to be able to share a ton of information and just advice and insight and thoughts and worldviews and what to do's and what not to do's from like a really long list of people that I find quite extraordinary. Some I've known for very short periods of time and maybe been able to glean just a tidbit of information. Others I've known for years and been able to absorb, just a ton of how they process and look at the world. And I've always felt super fortunate to do that. There's just not enough time in the world to get to see all the different views and perspectives and experiences that are out there. And that's something that simultaneously makes me really excited, but also frustrates the hell out of me. And originally I wanted to call this podcast Diamonds in the Rough and focus on the topic of sharing this advice. And I love that phrase. I love what it stands for and the concept of it. I love the movie Aladdin and the Cave of Wonders. But yeah, the Diamonds in the Rough concept was something that really drove a lot of this. And I'd say maybe I'd hope to do that, but I'm kind of in control of the podcast. So it just comes down to when I decide to do it and how I want to do it. So that is something I will take the opportunity to add in here more in the future. I'm just not quite sure how I bring it to light, but receiving some comments and thoughts on the podcast from somebody else is a fantastic way to start. And I really appreciated it. And what they wrote was, curiosity is the greatest training tool. Certainty becomes dogmatism, which breeds stagnation, obstinance, and cynicism. We love feeling like we're part of a tribe, but every tribe needs explorers to go on a physical, intellectual, and spiritual adventures to see what lies beyond our beliefs or borders. Bring back magic from other groups or dimensions to share. That's only possible if you never stop asking, hey, what if I tried? And I just, I loved how this was phrased. I loved the emphasis on curiosity. And as I had said earlier, I was kind of kicking myself that I couldn't get the word curiosity out of my mouth in the last podcast, but maybe if I had, I wouldn't have been so affected and appreciative of this kind of summary and this insight from somebody else. But I think the curiosity is such a perfect concept for navigating both, an obstinate certainty and also navigating the challenges that come with testing your own beliefs. There's so much, uncertainty and fear and unknown involved with that. I think that's one of the biggest drivers why we don't. Like, the world view makes sense to us if I'm just at least feel certain about it. And I never have to go and look behind the curtain or go and touch the stove, right? You don't ever have to go and find out if you believe that thing hard enough. But there's just so much more opportunity when you do say, they mentioned here, what if I tried? And I just thought that was so perfect and spot on. If you're someone who's having a hard time navigating your beliefs and your worldview, it's stoking that fire of curiosity as just a perfect way to start. And I think, it's as simple as, just wondering how something works or occurs and then investigating that. Sometimes the investigation is relatively superficial. Sometimes it's a bigger deep dive. Sometimes it's weeks, weeks, months of your life going off on a tangent. But I'm a little bit of a nerd, proudly, and grew up, maybe still do, playing this tabletop card game called Magic the Gathering. And I think it's an absolutely fantastic game. It's been around for a pretty long time now. It has its sort of like tabletop strategy, and you have to understand how all the cards work. But what I really like about it is the cards all have this really unique art on them, and they're all very different. And there's a really wild story intertwined. Like I said, nerd, but I do love stories, all of them. Anyway, there's this one card called Tinker. And on cards, they have both like instructions on how the card works, but they also have this thing called flavor text, which ties the card back to the story. And bring some of that emotion into the game, which could be too heavily. I think if it didn't have it, it would just be like a little bit dry because of all the logos. But anyway, it has flavor text. And it ties it back to the story. And this card Tinker, the flavor text on it, I believe, says something to the extent of, I wonder what it feels like to be bored. And I always loved that concept of like, if you're constantly tinkering, you probably won't ever feel bored, because you're truly just curious about how everything works, what's going on, what happens if I move this thing here, if I flip this switch over here, if I spend a little time reading about this thing and learning about it. The boredom is just not a concept that would exist for you, because there's always another thing to look into. And so I really did feel like this concept of curiosity was a perfect tool to, I don't know, just enjoy exploring not only the world around you, but your own mind and how you think about things. And it's something you definitely use less, I feel like, as you get older. Though I will say most of the very interesting people I bumped into in my life, if I had to look at a common thread, curiosity is one of them. It's one of the common threads among them. But as you get older, I think it's a harder thing to engage in, because you've had so many years of learning how you think things work, or how things, you expect things to work. And that is like basically a full-on blockade to your brain looking underneath the hood and just discovering what's next and being curious. And I've talked about this before at our affiliate, CrossFit Mafia. I feel like everyone has kids, and they're all relatively younger, maybe like 10 or under. So they are just like little curiosity rockets, the constant questions of why, exploring, imaginary this, how does this thing work? What if we did this? What would happen next? And part of that is just because, one, their brains are built to do it, but also they just haven't had all like the baggage of learning what typically happens when you stick to a routine. And you don't, you just stick to the routine, and what happens, and the sun comes up, and you don't have to guess what's next. You don't need to look, because, this stuff just happens on a habit or a schedule. And I think the older I get, the more I try to kind of appreciate that curiosity, because it's really easy to lose hold of, and it is a skill you want to keep practicing. And I think also it's an easy skill to practice. You don't need a lot around you. It could be really simple things. Nature is such a beautiful provider as just a space to explore curiosity. And then we have like incredible amounts of technology in front of us too, to explore that curiosity. But I do think it comes down to that concept of like, what if I tried this? And I was talking to another friend of mine, colleague I work with, and he was just kind of talking about how he's trying to navigate sharing things like YouTube and social media with his kids. And he understands that there are a lot of pitfalls that come along with that. And what was talking about is like, how do I help them create like a way of looking at things, like a framework where they can identify these negative aspects of it, but also identify all the positives that come with it. Use it to explore their curiosity about how the world works. I mean, you can truly learn just about anything, even some places of Instagram, but YouTube You can you can learn how to play guitar, you can learn another language, you can learn how to install a natural gas heater and then vent it through your wall or your roof. It's almost endless, in some ways overwhelming. And I think for those of you out there, because I know everyone has felt this way, for those of you out there who are like, well, how the heck do I practice this? It's how do I practice, reinvigorating curiosity? It's no more difficult, because I know you all think this, than just doing this following thing. When you think to yourself, I wonder, fill in the blank, go explore that a little bit. Just do a quick Google, take the convenient way. The first step, do a Google search on it. I wonder how this thing works. I'd pick it up, put it in your hands, look at it, take it apart. Will you break it? Probably. Will it be interesting? Absolutely. And it'll be really satisfying, and it's infinite, I think, in how you can apply that. Like one of my favorite books, Alice in Wonderland, which is like, it's just like a volume of curiosity. But in it, I think one of Lewis Carroll's quotes is, I think it's like, I believed as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast. That's like a perfect way to encapsulate curiosity. And, in honor of curiosity, we've been sticking to the 10-minute timeline. And just what if we went over 10 minutes? What happens? And you know what? It feels kind of good, and it's super awesome. But I can't thank that person enough for sharing that insight and just reminding me of the power of curiosity. There's so many things in my life that would not have happened without just the desire to scratch that itch, and having learned to have a good relationship with curiosity growing up. I think my entire career in fitness wouldn't have happened without curiosity, because just like, what if I learned a little bit more about fitness? What if I went to this level 1 seminar? Because I, at that time, before I, kind of dipped my toe in that water, was so sure of the way the world worked, and was so sure that it was important to be a lawyer. And that's exactly what I, certainly had to do and needed to do. But man, curiosity got the better of me. And I'm so glad that it did. So stay curious, my friends. More tomorrow.